Alessandra's stepmother slapped her across the face just because she wanted some food. She was so hungry that she kept pleading, "Please give me some food, mother. I am hungry. My stomach hurts." She was 10 years old, abandoned by her birth mother. "Why don't you run away like your mother?" her stepmother Catherine said, stuffing her face with a piece of steak and licking her lips. "Please, mother." Alessandra's stomach was churning and she couldn't stop herself. "Just give me something bread." She grabbed Catherine's leg. "Get away from me, you hungry little witch!" Catherine snapped, kicking Alessandra away as the girl clung to her leg. Alessandra stumbled to her feet, a ragged girl in sharp contrast to the southern elegance of the Barrett estate. Her eyes were fixed on the lavish table spread, freshly baked bread, roasted meat, and steaming vegetables, all meticulously arranged to welcome her father, Desmond Barrett. "Here," Catherine said, tossing a chunk of bread onto the floor. "Now get lost before your father arrives." Alessandra picked up the bread and slipped outside into the garden. She found a quiet corner and began to eat it, taking small, careful bites. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring the warm glow of the setting sun. Just then, she felt a hand on her shoulder. "Good evening, Alessandra," came Kate's voice. Her stepsister had found her. "What's for dinner today?" she asked. Alessandra looked up at Kate and her sobs broke through. Kate had taken Alessandra's place as the pride of the Barrett family after her mother Catherine married Alessandra's father Desmond. Kate smiled sweetly. There," she said, gently wiping tears from Alessandra's cheeks. "I snuck some food from the kitchen. I'd be happy to give it to you if you'd just follow me." It was unusual for Kate to show such kindness, but Alessandra's hunger was unbearable, so she followed her. "Just a little farther," Kate coaxed, leading her to the farthest corner of the garden. "It's right over there," she said, pointing to a dark spot. Alessandra took a few steps forward and her feet sank into the mud. She hesitated. Suddenly, she felt a hard shove from behind, sending her sprawling face first into the muddy puddle. Struggling to her feet, she turned to see Kate laughing with a hand on her stomach. "That's where you belong, you filthy vermin, in the cesspool just like your mother," Kate sneered. "Your mother ran off with a cesspool cleaner after all?" Alessandra's blood boiled. She lunged at Kate in a blind rage, but Kate was ready. She swiftly pinned Alessandra down, her weight holding her in place. Alessandra cried out as Kate's long nails raked across her face. It took her a moment to realize Kate was wearing spiked jewelry that tore into her skin. Leaving deep, searing wounds, it ripped through her flesh, sending waves of agony through her body. "Help me, father, help me!" Alessandra screamed, her voice echoing through the garden. It took some time before her father and stepmother arrived. To Alessandra's shock, they ignored her completely, rushing to help Kate instead. "Are you okay, my child?" Desmond asked, concerned. "Did she hurt you, Kate?" Catherine inquired as she brushed dirt from her clothes. Then she turned to Alessandra and said, "Look what you've done, you dirty vermin, filthy like your mother." Alessandra stood up, her eyes blazing with fury. That's when they noticed the blood streaming from the gashes on her face. Desmond's berated, "Look at your face, Alessandra! Why do you have to be a witch like your mother, always causing trouble?" "I didn't do anything, father." Alessandra started sobbing, wiping the mud from her face that was mixing with her blood. Desmond ignored her agony, turned to her stepmother Catherine. Frustration etched across his face. "This will be a public disgrace for me. Catherine, people will say Desmond Barrett tortures his own daughter." "Why, Desmond?" Catherine snapped, her agitation clear. "Why do we even keep her around?" Desmond sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Well, Catherine, we keep her around because her mother left all her fortune, and the Barrett estate in this little runt's name." He paused, glancing at Alessandra's bloodied face. "But what about her face?" Catherine waved a hand dismissively. "Don't worry," she said nonchalantly. "We'll just cover it with a mask until the wounds heal." Alessandra would live her life with her face covered in a mask. The matter was pushed under the rug by Katrina and Desmond. When people questioned Katrina about what had happened to a beautiful Alessandra, why she needed to live with her face hidden behind a mask, her reply was simple. Her mother got diseased sleeping with cesspool cleaners. The daughter caught the same disease, Catherine would whisper to anyone who would listen. When people still dared to show kindness to Alessandra, Catherine added to her cruel tale, spreading lies like poison. Her mother was a witch who cursed her face. Anyone who looks at her dies. The rumors spread like wildfire, and soon people avoided Alessandra at all costs. They averted their eyes, afraid that even a glance might bring death. They stopped speaking her name, as if uttering it would seal their fate. Alessandra lived a secluded life within the walls of the Barrett mansion, clinging to the fading memories of her birth mother, who was no longer there to comfort her. She found solace in the wedding dress her mother had left behind, wrapping herself in its delicate fabric and burying her face in its folds, her tears soaking into the fabric. But even that small comfort was ripped away from her when she turned 18. One day, Kate stormed into her room, her eyes gleaming with malice. Alessandra's heart sank as she saw what Kate had done. Her mother's wedding dress, her most cherished possession, had been torn to shreds. That dress belonged to my mother. Alessandra's nails dug painfully into her palm. It was the only thing I had left of her. Her half-sister Kate held the tattered gown in her hands, an evil grin tugging at her lip. "Oh, this ugly thing?" Kate sneered. "Like it would have helped you look any less hideous. Don't forget, sister, the Duke is traveling all the way here to find a wife, not rescue some masked monster." All the other young maidens laughed and joined in on the mockery. Can you imagine? A man like Duke Collins with the cursed daughter of a baron. Another added, what a wife she'd be. One look at her scarred face and the Duke would be cursed for life. Beneath the mask that hid her scarred face, Alessandra remained strong. "What's the matter, Alessandra?" Kate smirked. "Are you going to cry?" She steadied her breath, not willing to be goaded into a fight. "My face may be scarred, but you're the one that's ugly on the inside, Kate." Kate stepped closer, her face inches away. "Why don't you run and tattle to Daddy? Oh wait, are you scared I'll tell him about that mangy rescue cat you're hiding? What do you think he'd do if he found out? Personally, I hope he kills the disgusting creature." Alessandra didn't back down. "One day I'll escape from this place, and then I'll never have to see you or your awful mother again. I hate it here." Alessandra snatched the dress from Kate's hands and stormed toward the exit. "That will never happen, freak. You're not going anywhere. You will die in this castle all alone." Alessandra made sure to slam the door shut behind her, drowning out her sister and the obnoxious giggling. With a heavy sigh, she fell against the wall and held the torn dress to her chest. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she whispered to herself. "I promise I'll get your dress fixed before I find you, and then we can forget all about this awful place." Suddenly, Alessandra heard a noise in the hallway and was snapped out of her daze. Meow. She shot up. Luna girl, is that you?" Alessandra scanned the empty hallway for her cat, slowly working down the passage, listening closely. She didn't even notice her father, Desmond, until she had crashed into his side. "Alessandra, what in the world are you doing sneaking around the halls?" he asked, shock in his eyes. "I thought I told you to stay in your room. The Duke will be here at any minute." Her mind scrambled, trying to conjure a lie. "I know, Father, I'm sorry," she muttered, her eyes downcast. "I was just so hungry. I was hoping to sneak to the kitchen before the party started." Demond eyed his daughter as though deciding whether or not to believe her. "You needy little nuisance. Tonight is the most important night this family has had in ages. Kate must impress the Duke, and I can't have you doing anything to ruin this big opportunity for her." As her father berated her, Alessandra noticed her rescue cat, Luna, scratching her back against a wooden bench down the hall. She stiffened, hoping not to arouse her father's suspicion. "I still curse your horrid mother for leaving me with you as a burden," Desmond spat. "Unless you want to go hungry the rest of the week, you better not show your face tonight. Do you understand?" "Yes, Father." Alessandra quickly nodded and then ran off, chasing after Luna before her father could punish her any further. But by the time she rounded the corner, Luna was nowhere in sight. "Where have you run off to now, Luna?" Alessandra quickly hurried to the kitchen where she found her cat lapping up milk next to a cozy fire. "Luna!" Alessandra exclaimed with joy as she scooped her up in her arms. "I was worried sick about you." Luna purred softly, her body vibrating against Alessandra's chest. "You have to be more careful with that one, my lady." She turned and saw the castle's cook, Mario, approaching. "I'd hate to think what your father would do if he found out about little Luna here." Alessandra beamed at her only true friend in the entire castle as Luna nuzzled his finger. "Thank you for feeding her, Mario. It's no wonder she loves spending so much time in the kitchen." Out of the way! Just then, another cook rushed by with a boiling pot of water. Alessandra just barely managed to dodge out of the way as he ran by, hot water splashing over the rim. "It's a little crazy in here today, huh?" "You have no idea, my lady," Mario yelped, stirring a stew cooking over an open flame. "The whole castle has lost its mind over the arrival of Duke Collins. I've never seen a party so big for a single person." Alessandra shook her head in annoyance. "Oh, trust me, I know. All the girls are basically fighting each other for a chance to become the Duke's bride. Such catty little games they play." She stroked Luna's back, unbothered by the chaos around her. "What, you don't want to get married?" Mario asked with a mischievous grin. Alessandra scoffed. "Yeah, right. Like there's a man out there who could see past my scars." Mario looked up. "You'd be surprised." The remark made her blush. "The only use I have for a husband is to take me as far away from this castle as possible," she said. Mario deflated slightly, and Alessandra added, "Don't you worry, old friend. When I leave here, you'll be coming with me." "Your generosity warms my humble heart, my lady," Mario gushed. "Mario," Alessandra said in a hushed tone, gently scratching behind Luna's ears. "Do you think the rumors about the Duke are true? They say he's ruthless." Mario glanced around the bustling kitchen, lowering his voice. "I've heard plenty about Duke Collins, my lady, and not all of it good. People say he's sharp as a blade, but twice as dangerous. He may look like an aristocrat, but I've heard whispers about him being connected to all those missing women. You'd best steer clear of him." Alessandra frowned, absently stroking Luna's back. "Missing women? Do you really think the Duke could be behind that?" "That man has as much power as the king," he muttered. "He doesn't play by the rules, Alessandra. Be careful if he comes near you." Before she could respond, the kitchen door slammed open with a deafening crash. Alessandra's stepmother, Katrina, swept in, her piercing gaze scanning the chaos. "What is this mess?" Katrina snapped, glaring at the bustling staff. "The Duke will be here any minute, and this kitchen looks like a pigsty. Get it together or you'll all be out on the streets before the night is over." Alessandra instinctively shielded Luna behind her skirt, her heart racing. Katrina's sharp eyes were already on her. "And what are you doing here, Alessandra?" Katrina sneered, her lips curling in disgust. "Sulking in the kitchen like a servant? Pathetic." "I was just—" "Save your excuses," Katrina hissed, stepping closer. "Do you think I don't know what you're hiding?" Her eyes narrowed, and Alessandra stiffened. "Don't think I haven't noticed that disease-ridden vermin you've been sneaking around with. If your father catches wind of it." "She's gone," Alessandra interrupted quickly, shooing Luna behind a stack of crates with a subtle motion. "I guess she must have gone back home." Katrina's gaze lingered for a moment, but she seemed satisfied. Good. The last thing this household needs is another filthy creature under its roof. Alessandra's stomach churned, but she kept her face blank. Katrina's smile was razor-sharp as she continued. "You should thank me, you know. If I hadn't stepped in, your father would have thrown you out years ago." "I didn't ask for your charity," Alessandra muttered under her breath. "What was that?" Katrina's voice cut through the air like a whip. "You should be grateful. It's bad enough your cursed face drove your mother away. I won't have you scaring off the Duke, too. This is Kate's big day, and she will secure the Duke's favor. You? You're nothing but a blemish on this family's reputation." Katrina waved her hand dismissively. "Get out of my sight. Go lock yourself in your room where you belong." Alessandra bit her lip to keep from snapping back, clenching her fists as she turned and left the kitchen. But the anger bubbling inside her refused to subside. She needed to find Luna. As she wandered the hallways in search of her cat, Alessandra's ears perked up at the sound of her father's voice drifting from behind a partially open door. She crept closer, careful not to be seen. "You're running out of time, Desmond," a gruff voice said, filled with cold menace. "My patience is wearing thin." Alessandra peeked through the crack and saw her father pacing the room, wringing his hands as though they might fall off. Opposite him stood a tall, imposing man with dark eyes and a cruel smirk. The air around him seemed to thicken with malice. "Please, Sir William," Desmond pleaded, desperation oozing from his voice. "Just give me a little more time. Once Kate is engaged to the Duke, her dowry will cover everything I owe you." And William Lancaster let out a low, humorless laugh. "And if the Duke doesn't propose, what then? Desmond faltered, his hands clenching into fists. He will. Kate is beautiful, charming, she'll win him over. William's smirk widened, his gaze sharp enough to cut. She'd better? Because if she doesn't, you'll need another way to pay your debt. His words hung in the air, heavy and threatening. Alessandra's breath hitched. She'd heard rumors about the sinister things William Lancaster had, and her mind raced, wondering how her father had gotten into such a dangerous man's bad graces. Suddenly, a familiar sound broke through her shock. Her heart stopped as she turned toward the source. Luna had crept into the room, her small body brushing against William's leg. William's sneer deepened as he looked down at the animal. What the hell is this? He raised his polished boot, and with a brutal motion kicked Luna across the room. The cat let out a heart-wrenching cry as it collided with a nearby chair, crumpling to the floor in a heap. No! Alessandra burst into the room, her instincts overriding any fear she had. She darted toward Luna and scooped her up, cradling the trembling creature against her chest. Both men turned toward her, their expressions starkly different. Alessandra? Desmond barked. What in God's name are you doing here? And what the hell is that creature doing in my castle? William, however, seemed intrigued. His dark eyes scanned her from head to toe, lingering on her mask and the way she protectively clutched the injured cat. So this is your other daughter, he mused, taking a slow step toward her. The cursed one I've heard so much about. Alessandra glared at him, though her legs trembled beneath her skirt. You leave Luna alone, she said through clenched teeth. William chuckled, a low, chilling sound that made her blood run cold. You've got spirit. I like that. His gaze roamed her again, this time with an unsettling hunger. You're not like the others. There's something different about you. Back off, creep! Alessandra spat, tightening her grip on Luna. Oh yes, you'd make a fine addition to my collection, William said, his tone dripping with insinuation. A unique little gem, wouldn't you agree, Desmond? She could make a fine payment for your debts. Alessandra recoiled, her heart pounding. Enough! Desmond roared, storming over to her. You shouldn't even be here, you insolent child. But he hurt her! Alessandra protested, tears burning her eyes as she motioned to Luna. Her father's hand moved faster than her thoughts. The slap landed hard across her cheek, the sting spreading like fire. You do not speak out of turn, Desmond hissed, his voice low but seething with rage. This is none of your concern. Alessandra's head whipped to the side from the force of the blow. She tasted blood in her mouth but refused to cry. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. William watched the exchange with mild amusement, his smirk firmly in place. You should teach her to obey, Desmond. A little discipline could go a long way. Desmond grabbed Alessandra by the arm and hauled her toward the door. Go to your room and stay there, he barked, shoving her into the hallway. I'll deal with you and that damn cat after the party. Alessandra stumbled but caught herself, clutching Luna tightly as the door slammed in her face. From inside the room, she could still hear their voices, muffled now, but she no longer cared to listen. She turned and walked back to her room, her arms wrapped protectively around Luna. I've got you, she whispered, her voice trembling. I won't let them hurt you again. William's words echoed in her mind, and her father's betrayal cut deeper than his slap. I have to get out of here, she thought, no matter what it takes. Back in her room, Alessandra scanned the cramped room, desperately trying to find any way to escape her prison. Everyone will be distracted by the party tonight, she muttered to Luna. If I'm getting out of here, tonight is my best chance. Alessandra quickly started shoving clothes into her bag when a noise came in through her open window. It was the sound of hooves and wheels on the cobblestone driveway outside, followed by an excited murmuring from the townspeople. She rushed to the window and peeked out, her heart pounding. A grand carriage pulled up to the castle, its dark, polished exterior gleaming in the late afternoon sun. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, with an air of authority that seemed to command the very air around him. Alessandra gasped. It's him! Duke Edgar Collins! Alessandra watched as he exchanged a few curt words with his butler, Alfred. Even from this distance, she could see the irritation on his face. Why am I here again? Edgar muttered, brushing invisible dust from his coat. To find a wife, Your Grace, Alfred replied patiently. Per the king's orders. Edgar snorted. This is a waste of time. Our Lord Collins, His Majesty has stated that. His Majesty can keep his opinions to himself, Edgar interrupted. I'm here for information on those missing women, not to entertain desperate mothers throwing their daughters at me. Alessandra's breath caught. He doesn't want to marry, she murmured, her mind racing. He's trapped just like me. An idea began to take shape. It was bold, reckless even, but it might be her only chance. She glanced back at Luna, who was curled up on the bed, purring softly. Stay here, she said, planting a quick kiss on the cat's head. I have something I need to do. Alessandra crept through the darkened hallways, her heart pounding in her chest. Back in the courtyard, Edgar was steeling himself for what awaited him on the other side of the door. Alfred, he said, when we're done here, remind me I owe the king a swift slap in the face next time I see him. Duly noted, sir. Alfred nodded. Shall we? With that, Edgar shoved open the door to the great hall where he was greeted by a large crowd awaiting his arrival. All eyes stared at the Duke, a silence hovering over the entire space. Edgar leaned over and whispered to Alfred, Kill me now. And then chaos erupted. A swarm of desperate mothers rushed toward Duke Edgar, their daughters dragged behind the frantic women. The first ran up to Edgar, pushing her daughter forward. Duke Collins, please meet my beautiful young daughter. I beg your pardon? She replied in shock, holding her bachelorette daughter's arm as the other party guests looked in their direction. Despite what you've heard, I have no intentions of marrying, let alone to a beast like your daughter. Step aside, wench. He had only just arrived, and already Duke Edgar's patience was running thin. He may have been the most eligible bachelor in town, but he was a man of principle, and was disgusted by desperate mothers begging him to marry their daughters as if they were farm animals. The mother clutched her necklace tightly. Duke Edward, I would never. The mere accusation is appalling. Forgive me, but we were under the impression that you were on the market again. And what fool told you that? He asked. The mother's cheeks turned red as she looked to the floor in embarrassment. We heard it from His Royal Highness himself. The king said he couldn't wait for you to have a duchess by your side. Duke Edgar felt the vein in his neck throb at the mention of the king. Though His Highness had a grander title, the Duke owned nearly as much land as the monarch. Their friendly rivalry over the years included the spreading of many rumors, and this was no exception. I see. Well, let me save you all from further disappointment. With all due respect, not a single one of your daughters is worthy of my attention. I bid you a good evening. Embarrassment washed over the mother and her daughter as a number of the other overzealous women took their leave from Edgar's side. They quickly realized there would be no charming the elusive Duke tonight. Duke Edgar was the only son of his father and the sole heir of countless lands. He lived like a king, and thanks to his connection to the king himself, nothing was impossible for Edgar. It's going to be a miserable evening, Edgar sighed. He felt like he was trapped in a viper's nest with all these mothers looking to bag a son-in-law. His sharp eyes scanned the room, pausing when they landed on a familiar figure standing near the fireplace. William Lancaster. The man radiated smugness, holding a crystal glass of wine in one hand while gesturing animatedly to a group of men hanging on his every word. Edgar's jaw tightened. If there was anyone who could make his skin crawl, it was William. Edgar adjusted the cuff of his jacket and strode toward the fireplace. As he approached, the conversation around William fell silent, and the men he'd been speaking to scattered like roaches. Your Grace, William drawled, his lips curling into a sly smile. What an honor to see you at such a quaint gathering. William, Edgar said curtly, his tone ice-cold. I didn't realize this party came with a pest infestation. William chuckled, clearly unfazed. Ah, always the charmer, aren't you? I heard you were looking for a wife. Is that what brought you to this charming den of desperation? Edgar's eyes narrowed. You certainly are one to talk. A man with a collection of women hidden away like trinkets in a locked box has no room to speak about marriage. William raised his glass, his expression unbothered. What an accusation, Edgar. You wound me. I'm merely a collector of companionship. Nothing more. Edgar took a step closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. The missing women, William. I'm not blind, nor am I stupid. You've got your filthy hands in this, and when I prove it, you'll be the one hanging from the gallows. William smirked and took a slow sip of his wine, his eyes never leaving Edgar's. Such a vivid imagination. But alas, I'm simply here to enjoy the party. Perhaps you should do the same. Have a drink, flirt with a pretty girl. Relax, Edgar. Life's too short to carry so much tension. Before Edgar could respond, Desmond Barrett's frantic figure appeared beside them, his ponytail bobbing as he hurried forward. "Duke Collins!" Desmond exclaimed, his face lighting up with the kind of eagerness that made Edgar want to leave immediately. William seized the opportunity, tipping his glass toward Edgar. "Duty calls, Your Grace. I'll leave you in the capable hands of our host." With that, he turned on his heel and disappeared into the crowd, leaving Edgar bristling. "Baron," Edgar greeted Desmond flatly, his irritation barely concealed. "It's an honor to have you here, Your Grace," Desmond gushed, bowing deeply. "I was beginning to worry you wouldn't come." Edgar's gaze flicked to the side, where a group of young women giggled and cast not-so-subtle glances his way. He suppressed a groan. "Let's skip the pleasantries, Baron. You know why I'm here?" Desmond hesitated, glancing nervously at the watching crowd. "Of course I do, Your Grace. But what kind of host would I be if I didn't at least offer you a drink first? Surely you—" "I'm not here for a fucking drink," Edgar interrupted, his voice low and sharp enough to cut. "You sent me a note claiming you had information about the missing women. Now you've wasted my evening with this spectacle. If I find out this was just a ploy to parade me in front of your guests—" Desmond's face turned a shade paler. "No, Your Grace, I would never." "Then stop stalling," Edgar snapped. "Either you have something useful to tell me, or I'll make you regret wasting my time." Desmond's eyes darted around the room, clearly desperate to avoid a scene. "It's upstairs, Your Grace. I can show you myself." "Good," Edgar said, though his grip on his patience was wearing thin. "Then do it quickly." As before Desmond could move, he hesitated, wringing his hands. "Your Grace, if I may, I've noticed you've been avoiding the eligible young ladies tonight. The king himself suggested you find a suitable match, and my own daughter." "Do I look like a shooting star to you, Baron?" Edgar interrupted, fixing the man with an exasperated glare. Desmond blinked, clearly confused. "A shooting star, Your Grace? I don't understand." "You seem to think I'm here to grant wishes," Edgar said coldly. "Let me make this clear. I have no interest in marriage, nor in playing matchmaker with your daughter or anyone else's. Now run along and bring me what you promised." "Yes, Your Grace," Desmond stammered, bowing again before scurrying off. As Desmond disappeared into the crowd, Edgar turned and made his way toward what he hoped was the garden. The thought of fresh air and a moment of solitude was the only thing keeping him from storming out of this pathetic charade entirely. Just as he neared a quieter corridor, his sharp eyes caught sight of a woman gesturing animatedly to a man in servant's attire. The Baron's wife, Edgar thought, recognizing Katrina Barrett. The man she was speaking to was the castle's cook, a wiry figure Edgar didn't recognize. He slowed his steps, angling his stride to stay hidden in the shadows as he passed, his curiosity piqued. "You're sure about this?" Katrina asked, her voice low but brimming with urgency. "She didn't suspect a thing?" Mario, the cook, glanced around nervously before replying. "Not at all, my lady. The dumb girl has no idea what you and the Baron are planning. She really thinks I'm looking out for her, my grace." Edgar's brows knit together as he paused, keeping his distance, but leaning slightly to catch their words. Katrina's lips curled into a cold smile. "Good. It's time someone taught Alessandra a lesson about meddling where she doesn't belong." Mario gave a stiff bow and scurried off down the hallway, leaving Katrina alone. Edgar remained in the shadows, his mind working quickly. What the hell are they planning? His distaste for the Barretts deepened as he considered the conversation. Whatever scheme Katrina and Desmond were plotting, it seemed to involve their outcast daughter, Alessandra. With a grim expression, Edgar resumed his walk toward the garden. The night had been a waste so far, but now he had more questions than answers. Edgar pulled a cigar out of his coat pocket and lit it, shivering slightly in the cold night air. "I should have brought 2 coats," he mumbled to himself. Passing by the stairs where he was standing, Edgar spotted a young woman hurrying off somewhere as she hugged a coat to protect her from the cold. He made his presence known. "That's a little thin for this weather, isn't it?" The woman halted, seemingly shaken up due to the fact that someone had caught her wandering around. "The party is inside," she offered. "I am very much aware of that, Alessandra." Why are you tensing up like I don't know who you are? Who else would be wearing a mask in the Baron's home except for his supposedly cursed daughter? After a moment of silence, Alessandra finally spoke. Are you scared of me? No, I have seen much scarier things in my day. Why should I be scared of a simple mask? Edgar blew out smoke into the air. That's going to kill you if you don't stop. Alessandra didn't need to turn around to see that he was smoking. The scent reached her nose and she found it to be disgusting. Good. It'll speed up the process. Are you scared of me? He asked after she had not once looked around to see who she was speaking to. I don't know who you are, to be honest, she replied. Right, I am Edgar Collins. Just Edgar would be fine. The Duke? Alessandra's eyes widened in mock surprise. One and the same, he nodded. They say you are to be married. Is that why you are here? You are here for my sister? I would rather die, no offense, Edgar added. None of the young women in there shall be my wife. They are all like matching dolls in a set. What about me? If I were to ask you to marry me, what would you say? Alessandra nervously waited for his answer. What none of you seem to understand is the fact you would be setting yourself up for a loveless marriage if I were to pick you. I was never interested in marrying at all, yet the rumor has its hooks in half the town by now, Edgar said. What if it's not love that I'm after? Edgar chuckled. Most marriages these days didn't start off with love, but the feelings always found their way in. There's no guarantee that one of us wouldn't fall for the other over time. What about a contract? Alessandra proposed an idea. She was desperate for any hope of escaping her father's home. Edgar was extremely suspicious of Alessandra's eagerness. Did your father set this up? My father has no idea that I am out here speaking to you, Duke Edgar. I have told you the party is on the inside. No one was supposed to see me passing by. In fact, my father will be furious if he learns that you and I spoke. Alessandra replied earnestly. Desmond was known to keep his daughter hidden away from the world. Alessandra was of no use to him thanks to her disfigurement and the rumors surrounding it. This offer has nothing to do with helping my father. I leave it up to you to believe me. I am not interested in marrying anyone for love. I only wish to leave this place and never look back. What is it? Is your father marrying you off to some filthy old... Or perhaps just shipping you to the other side of the country? Has to be something drastic for you to ask a man you don't know to marry you. Edgar pressed his cigar against the stone wall to end it. I am dying within these walls, day by day, piece by piece. I am neglected and unloved by my own father. I do not care for your looks, Duke Edgar, nor your money. Frankly, I see you as an escape, she explained. Alessandra knew she had to take advantage of their encounter. This might be her only chance at getting out of this miserable castle. I've heard the king wishes for you to get married. You seem to have very little romantic interest in a wife, and I could be a fitting choice. Our goals may be aligned here. We'll never expect love from one another and never be responsible for each other outside of marital duties. Is this agreeable? Edgar had finally started to believe Alessandra. Still, he wasn't looking to entertain the idea of being married to her just yet. It isn't hard for me to find an actress to play the role of my wife. If it was so easy, you would have done so already, Alessandra said, seeing through his bluff. If the king has done this to toy with you, choosing a wife like me will surely drive him crazy. The corners of Edgar's mouth lifted. You're much quicker on your feet than I expected. The rumors about your timidity and reclusive nature are clearly false. Alessandra didn't break his gaze, as if daring him to look away first. And you are said to be a monster, but you seem human to me. I do what I must to survive. If my terms are not agreeable, I shall leave you be, Alessandra said as she took a step toward the door, waiting for an answer. When Edgar didn't respond, she took another step. Just as she got to the door, he spoke up. Wait. Alessandra froze as Edgar stood and stalked toward her. You are bold indeed, girl, he growled. He was so close, Alessandra could feel the warmth of his breath on the back of her neck. I agree to your terms, but I have a few of my own. That's when she noticed Kate walking in their direction. Panicking, she told Edgar, I will see you tomorrow, Duke Edgar, but please keep this conversation between us. Edgar nodded courteously, and she rushed away as Kate arrived. Kate had already seen her speaking to Edgar and knew it would cause trouble. I hope she did not offend you, Duke Edgar. She was not meant to be out here, Kate said, as she caught a fleeting glance of Alessandra. Edgar stopped beside Kate. She has not offended me, not like your father has. Thank goodness, Edgar interrupted. It might be due to me being an only child, but shouldn't you be referring to her as your sister, or at least by her name? Edgar noted the younger girl's disdain for her sister. You are correct, Duke Edgar. It must be because you have no siblings. When siblings quarrel, we do petty things, but I love my older sister. She is shy and awkward, which is why I feared she might have offended you, Kate said, masking her true feelings. She was determined to make the Duke see her as a virtuous person. To her, no one else was worthy of being her husband. If that helps you sleep at night, Edgar replied, walking away as Alessandra disappeared. He wished he could leave Kate behind as easily. You know, Duke, I was hoping for some private conversation with you. I wish to show you that I can be an excellent choice for your wife, Kate said, gripping his arm to slow him down. Edgar sighed, annoyed. The Baron and his wife had raised Kate to be a spoiled lady, but he knew how to handle her. Is there some misconception that I am seeking a wife whose sole merit is her ability to please me in private? He removed her hand firmly. I beg your pardon? Kate stammered, caught off guard. You frequent the less reputable parts of town, spending time with loose women? Edgar shrugged. Who is to say I do not go there to read a book? It is rather noisy there. I work better with noise. But please enlighten me. What do you know of how loud it is? Edgar grinned as Kate realized her mistake. What would the Baron's daughter be doing there unless you're indulging in gossip? No, you misunderstand, Kate said quickly. Understand this, Kate. What you are doing will never entice me. Besides, I've received a more suitable offer. Excuse me, Edgar stated, leaving Kate both confused and embarrassed. Alessandra leaned against a tree far from the party, her mind racing. I got caught, she muttered to herself. She knew Kate would be furious if she found out about her conversation with Edgar. Alessandra hoped Kate hadn't overheard anything about the contract. She took a deep breath, pushing away her worries. Today was not the day to dwell on what-ifs. She was hungry and her food hadn't been delivered. She suspected Kate or her mother was behind it. Alessandra made her way to the kitchen, slipping through the chaos of servants rushing to prepare food for the guests. She called out, Mario, spotting the cook amidst the frenzy. Alessandra? Mario said, surprised, turning to her. He told another cook tasting the stew, It's a bit bland, don't you think? Cover for me. I won't be long. Then he led Alessandra outside. No one came to my room to deliver food, Alessandra explained, though she knew the risks of being seen. Mario closed the door behind them. It's that witch's fault. Just a month ago they were laying off cooks and workers. Now they throw this party and there's not enough of us to handle the job. What are they thinking? Duke Collins is looking for a wife, haven't you heard? Alessandra said. Mario scoffed. So that's the reason. Did they throw a party just for Kate to meet the man? I can only imagine she's like a fly bothering him right now. I've spoken to him, Alessandra said in a low voice. The Duke? About what? Mario asked, skeptical. He had heard many stories about Edgar, none of them good. There are many bad stories about him, Mario warned. There are many stories about me in this mask. Do you believe them? Alessandra countered. Mario went silent. He had heard the rumors about Alessandra, but he didn't believe them. Of course not. Then I shall give the Duke a fair chance. I can't tell you what I spoke to him about, but I will say I am hoping for some good news, Alessandra said, resting against a broken wall. Is this concerning your escape plan? I hope the Duke can help you run far away. It's a shame you can't go on your own because of the young girls disappearing, Mario said, sitting beside her. I hope the culprit is found and the girls are still alive, Alessandra said. I overheard your father claiming to know something about it when I went to deliver his coffee. I was hired to be a cook, but they've laid off so many people that I'm now a maid. It would be good if they paid me for the extra work, Mario said, kicking a stone in frustration. Alessandra watched the stone roll away. When I leave, you should come with me. You have always been kind to me, and I wish to return the favor. That is nice of you, but I owe the Baron for the money I borrowed. I have at least 1 year until it is paid off, and then I will come to find you. You are the only Barrett I can stand. I don't know what went wrong with the others, Mario said. I don't know what went wrong with my father. Mario, I need a favor. Well, two. I am not close to the coachman, but you are. Can you speak to him about taking me somewhere tomorrow without letting my family know about it? He might be scared of me and run away before I could speak to him, Alessandra said. That won't be a problem. I take it this trip has something to do with the Duke. I am wary of him, Alessandra. Even if you don't want to believe in rumors without knowing the person, there are some things you need to keep in mind and be cautious of, Mario warned. I will listen to your advice and be cautious. I always walk around with my trusted knife, Alessandra said, pulling out a small knife from her dress pocket. Mario stared at her unimpressed. Be reminded you are holding a knife, not a gun. What is the second favor you need? Food, please, Alessandra said with an innocent smile. Right away. I must get it before they kill me for being away so long, Mario said, dusting off his pants and heading back inside. Alessandra waited patiently, tapping her finger to the rhythm of the faint music coming from the house. She closed her eyes, imagining what it would be like to dance and enjoy the party like everyone else. If only she didn't have to wear a mask, and the rumors surrounding her didn't make everyone back away in fear. After a while, Mario returned with a plate of food and a jug of something to drink. I got you a little bit of everything, he said, interrupting her thoughts. Alessandra took the food and drink, thanking him. She knew she would spend the night alone with the kitten she had found, listening to the music and eating in the comfort of her room. The next morning, Alessandra was awakened by a voice outside her room. My lady, breakfast is here, she groaned, stretching as she woke up. How on earth is it morning already? I was just eating dinner, she muttered. My lady? The voice called again. Alessandra realized it was Kate. Normally, the person delivering her food would knock and leave quickly out of fear. This person was practically begging her to come to the door, which meant Kate was impatiently waiting. I'm coming, Alessandra called back. She sat up, taking the sleeping kitten from the pillow and placing it in her closet to hide. She closed the closet door and went to her desk to put on the mask she had worn last night. With the mask tied, Alessandra approached her door and unlocked it. Your breakfast, the maid said, her head down. Alessandra looked down at the breakfast placed on the floor. Thank you, she said, bending down to pick it up. But as her hands neared the floor, a shoe appeared from the left, pinning down her left hand. Good morning, sister, Kate said, appearing from the sidelines. Alessandra winced from the pain. Good morning, sister, run along, Kate ordered the maid, who quickly left. Did you have fun last night, Alessandra? Yes, Alessandra replied. Yes? Kate said, furious. Just because you ran into the Duke, you think you had fun? Not that, Alessandra stuttered. I had fun in my room last night. The music reached my room. Is that so? Tell me, what did you discuss with the Duke last night? Kate demanded. I did not notice he was standing there as I was going to collect my dinner. He called out my name as I forgot to address someone as important as the Duke. He scolded me, and then you arrived. That is all, Alessandra said. Kate pressed her shoe harder against Alessandra's hand. What else? He spoke about getting married and you as an option, nothing more, I swear, Alessandra cried out. Kate lifted her foot. Of course he would speak about me. Who would want to talk to such a freak? Alessandra rolled her eyes, thankful Kate couldn't see her face. Still, it angers me that you showed your disgusting face to the Duke. What if he were to believe he is cursed and come to take his anger out on us? What will you do then, you freak? Do you think you'll be safe, that father will shield you? Kate pushed her shoe against Alessandra's hand again. No, Alessandra whimpered. Then stay in your bedroom all. Kate, Desmond exclaimed, seeing his youngest daughter hurting his oldest. Stop it right this instant, but father, Kate trailed off, realizing there was no use in denying what he clearly saw. The Duke saw her last night, and they spoke. Desmond looked down at Alessandra, surprised. I will take care of it. Leave. Kate stomped her feet and left, leaving Alessandra trembling in pain but relieved. Alessandra, sweetheart, Desmond said, inching closer. Can you tell me what happened between you and the Duke last night? Why were you out of your bedroom? You know there was a party. No food came last night, and I was hungry. The garden is off limits, so I thought I could run by quickly. That is all, Alessandra said. Desmond nodded. What did you talk about? Alessandra kept her head down. He only wanted to make sure he could smoke there and talked about Kate as a marriage candidate. Really? Desmond's eyes lit up. That man is so strange. He probably wants to observe her a little longer. This is good. Edgar was someone Desmond needed to help him crawl out of his debt. Kate finding a rich husband was their only hope. Still, you should not have gone out. What if I would have changed my mind and taken a few people out there? Desmond scolded. Alessandra thought, "So I should starve?" "I'm sorry, Father," she replied. Fine, fine. There's absolutely no point in scolding you. Whoever did not bring your food is to blame. I'm sorry about what Kate did, but she's just looking out for us. Edgar is someone who can easily ruin us," Desmond said. He was worried, but since Edgar mentioned nothing, it meant Alessandra had not offended him. "You must be bored in your room all the time. What is it that you would like to pass the time? Name anything, and I shall fetch it right away." "Since you asked, I have run out of things to paint. I wish to paint the town. Can I ride around in the carriage to see places to paint? I won't get out." "I promise," Alessandra said. Desmond placed his hand on his hip. "Promise me you won't leave the carriage." "I promise," Alessandra said, grinning beneath her mask. With that, Alessandra found a way to reach Edgar. At the Collins estate, Edgar peered out his window, waiting. Alfred, his butler, entered with breakfast. "Young master, I have brought your breakfast." Edgar turned. "Good morning, Alfred. Thank you for breakfast. Are you expecting guests? Should I prepare breakfast for them or have drinks prepared?" Alfred asked. "I'm honestly not sure. I gave her the invitation, but it is not certain she will arrive unless she is truly desperate," Edgar said, looking back out the window. "A woman visiting in broad daylight?" Alfred was surprised. Edgar frowned. "What are you trying to say, Alfred? That I am some kind of whore?" "Yes," Alfred bowed. Edgar couldn't believe Alfred had answered honestly. "I am not. Please refrain from saying such a thing if the guest is to arrive. She might become the lady of this house." "What?" Alfred was shocked. Edgar stared at him unamused. "Why are you acting like it's such a surprise I would get a wife?" Alfred recollected himself. "Your exact words when the king suggested you marry were, 'I am never getting married. I would rather jump from the roof and die.' Maybe I misinterpreted those words. I apologize. Alfred, I sincerely believe I inherited my dramatic nature from you. I am not interested in marriage, but the woman I met last night was intriguing. A perfect way to piss off the king and ward off some people from around me." "I do not understand," Alfred said. "It will be self-explanatory if she arrives today. If a Barrett comes to visit me, let them in." "Not the father," Edgar added. "Barrett? Please tell me it's not Kate," Alfred asked softly. "No, the Baron has another daughter. Alessandra Barrett is the older one," Edgar said. "Thank goodness," Alfred sighed in relief. "You are aware of the rumors concerning her, right?" Edgar asked. "Anyone is better than Kate in my book. If that younger girl were to become your wife, I would finally retire after 40 years. We are not so sure Alessandra will even arrive. When was the last time you—" A knock at the door interrupted Alfred. He opened it to find a maid handing him a paper. "It appears we are in for a surprise. Alessandra Barrett wishes to have an audience with you." Edgar was pleasantly surprised. "Invite her to my study." "Yes, young master." Alfred bowed and left. "Stop bowing so much, Alfred. You are not a priest," Edgar said as Alfred left. "Alessandra Barrett, what an interesting person you are." Alessandra exited the carriage her father had given her to ride around for the day. She looked around the entrance of the Duke's estate, amazed by its grandeur. "This is huge," she commented. "Good morning," she said as armored men walked past her. "Good morning," they replied in unison. Alessandra was surprised they didn't flinch at her mask. At least the guards here are not afraid of stupid rumors, she thought. Moments later, the large doors of Edgar's home opened, revealing Alfred. "Welcome, Alessandra Barrett. The Duke is expecting you," Alfred greeted her. "Good morning, it's nice to meet you," Alessandra said, holding out her hand. Alfred shook her hand happily. "Come, I shall lead the way." Alessandra felt unable to breathe as she entered the Duke's home for the first time. The interior was stunning, filled with paintings and elegant decor. She cleared her throat and followed Alfred. "I'm sorry, I did not get your name," Alessandra said. "Alfred," he replied. "Nice to meet you, Alfred," Alessandra smiled. "He is in here," Alfred said, knocking on the door and opening it for Alessandra. "Thank you," Alessandra said before entering the room. The door closed behind her and she felt her heart skip a beat. "I wasn't expecting you to show up, but if you did, breakfast time was not my guess," Edgar said, sitting at his desk, watching her every move. "Was I meant to come in the night as a thief would?" Alessandra responded without thinking. She lifted her chin. "Would you have preferred I arrived in the dead of night?" Edgar gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Take a seat, I'm curious. How did you manage to leave your father's home? Did you trick him, or did he let you out willingly? Alessandra sat down, carefully considering her words. I am not working with my father. In fact, he would never allow me to visit this place. He'd call me crazy for thinking you would ever invite me into your home. Does your father hate you? Edgar asked bluntly. Alessandra hesitated before answering. I don't think he hates me. He's ashamed of me. Who would want a daughter with a reputation like mine in a world like this? It's a parent's job to love their child no matter what. It's a shame you were born a baron's daughter. You would have been loved elsewhere, Edgar remarked. If I were the daughter of farmers, they would have cast me aside to sell their crops. Why would a farmer's daughter end up wearing a mask? Whatever you're hiding, it's because you're a baron's daughter, right? High society is quite competitive, Edgar interrupted. Yes, Alessandra admitted. Someone must have been really jealous of you, Alessandra. Fine, let's say I believe this is all you're planning, and your father isn't involved. Why would someone who's lived in hiding want to marry someone in the spotlight? Truthfully, asking you about marriage just slipped out. I was looking for someone to marry, but I never pictured someone as grand as you. I've considered 3 things. You're private, so I wouldn't need to mingle much. I can ward off people from coming around you, and you can control my family, Alessandra explained. Edgar raised an eyebrow. I like to keep to myself, but there are parties I must attend. Am I to show up without my wife? It would be boring if you hid all the time. You misunderstand, Edgar. I never hid because I wanted to. I did what I was told. I'd love to go out, attend parties, and dance. I might lack experience and confidence, but I don't wish to live in the shadows anymore, Alessandra said earnestly. Edgar hummed thoughtfully. A week ago, I wouldn't have entertained this conversation, but I'm in the mood to play games. He placed a piece of paper on the desk. What is this? Alessandra asked as she looked at the paper with fancy designs on the edges. A contract marriage needs to have rules and conditions, right? Edgar pushed the paper, a pen, and ink toward her. Alessandra's eyes widened. Isn't this a little too easy? I expected you to grill me more. What are you waiting for? Edgar asked when she hesitated. Sorry. Alessandra reached for the paper, but Edgar grabbed her hand, noticing faint redness around her knuckles. What happened to your hand? It's nothing, Alessandra pulled her hand away. It's something if you're to be my wife. Name the person and I'll have them punished, Edgar said firmly. It was an accident, Duke Edgar, Alessandra insisted. Just Edgar is fine. See to it that you don't have any more accidents before we're married, Edgar said, deciding to drop the topic for now. No love shall be the first condition. It won't be a problem on my end. Alessandra spoke first. I hope you stay like this until the end, Edgar replied. You're not my type, Edgar, Alessandra said bluntly. So there is a type, Edgar mused. I was hidden away, but I wasn't blind. What should the second condition be? Alessandra asked. Speak of this to no one besides my butler Alfred. He'll be a shield for you in dangerous times. Third, we need to communicate any issues we have. Don't let something small grow into something big, Edgar stated. I agree, Alessandra said. I must ask that I can keep my mask on until I feel comfortable without it. That's your business, do as you wish, Edgar said, continuing with the next condition. Fifth, we must sleep in the same room. He paused and looked at Alessandra's face. Why are you surprised? Did you think I wouldn't sleep with my wife? He asked. Alessandra flushed as Edgar insisted. Sign it, Alessandra. What are you waiting for? Will Alessandra accept the Duke's offer? Is she making a deal with the devil? Will she regret her decision, or will she escape her cruel family?
To listen to the full audio series, install the Pocket FM app now.
Pocket FM. Download the app now.